Hey everybody, Robert with RC Archery. For this week's Rchery Vision episode, I'm actually going to take some of the questions from last week's video and answer those here. Alright, so on last week's video, I didn't have a normal video. I actually just asked for viewer questions. So if you have something you wanted to know, and I printed off all of them so that I could look through them, and I'm actually going to group some of them together and start doing some videos over them. The first one that I did is going to be over eyes, eye dominance, peep sights, just double vision, things like that. I was really surprised there were several of them on there over this topic, so I'm going to answer this first. First person's question here is from Some Engineer. It says, does forgiving actually have any science behind it, or is it just a marketing term? And also, do you have any advice for people who are cross-dominant? So the first part of your question, yes, there is some science behind a bow being forgiving or a setup being forgiving. I'm going to go over that in a different video. For today, I'm just going to focus on your second part. So is there any advice that I can give on cross dominance? So I asked for some clarification on that. You were saying being like right eye dominant, but using your left hand as your dominant hand on what you're doing, or something of that nature. So that's what I'm going to go over first. So for some people, you're ambidextrous, and that may be what you were talking about as well, just being cross-dominant, but I'm one of those people that I am ambidextrous in a lot of things that I do. I can shoot a rifle or handgun, either left-handed or right, and I can use either eye as far as being able to look at the front side on a gun or looking through a rifle scope. I can kind of shoot a bow, either right-handed or left-handed, but I am much better right-handed, so I focus on that. I can bat right-handed or left-handed, shoot pull that way, a lot of things. So for me, I actually have some issues when it comes to eye dominance taking over for certain eyes, and because I use one eye over the other for certain tasks, so I kind of have to be careful about this. When it comes to just finding eye dominance, a lot of people grow up, and especially maybe if you have a kid and you're helping your child learn how to shoot a bow or something, a lot of people just say, well, I'm right-handed, so my child's right-handed, or some people right-handed, but maybe they're not always right-eye dominant, so you can get into some issues like that. And the first thing I want to go over is just how to find your eye dominance. So the easiest thing to do is hold your hands out in front of you, make a triangle, focus on something, a light switch on the wall or something like that, and then just bring your hands to your eye. So I was looking at the middle of my camera when I did that, and you can see that my hands will naturally move themselves over to where I can see just through my right eye. Another way you can test this out really quickly, hold your hand out in front of you, look at your finger, close your right eye, or close your left eye, and close your right eye. Which one did the finger stay still and which one did it move? So when I close my left eye, my finger is still in line with the camera. But if I close my right eye, my finger shifts to the side. So that's a really easy way to find eye dominance. When you look at it from a bow standpoint, or what you're shooting or what you're doing with that, it's going to be, generally speaking, it's going to be easiest for your brain to learn a task when it mirrors your eye dominance. So I'm right eye dominant. It is easier for me to learn how to write with my right hand. It's easier for me to use a release with my right hand. If I want to use my left hand, I can train my brain and I can work on that, but it's a lot harder. So if you've got a child and they're just starting out, find their eye dominance. If they're left eye dominant and they're shooting a right-handed bow, go ahead and switch them early on. It'll be a lot easier for a child than it is for someone of my age or an adult. If you are left eye dominant and you use your right hand to write, and this is the main function of what you do, I would say you're probably going to be better off switching to a left-handed bow. And the reason I say that is because, again, it is easier for you to be more proficient at a task when your eye dominant is the same as your hand that you're using for that task. So your left hand working through the release is a little bit more than just holding with the grip of the bow. You're not really moving that hand, you're not doing a whole lot with it. Generally speaking, that is going to be the easiest for you. Now, if you're a shooter that's shot a long time with a right-handed bow, but you're left eye dominant, and you're coming into issues with cross eye dominant being able to take over, so your left eye is trying to take over off of that right eye, that's something I'm going to go over later in this video, and I have some tricks to help you train your brain and your eye and everything to line up and take over for you. All right, so my next question here is from Paul Williams. Paul says, what would cause my peep and scope to step out of alignment during the shot? I feel strong, but struggle during the shot to maintain perfect alignment. Your help would be appreciated. Well, that's a really common problem that a lot of archers have, myself included, but there is some pretty easy fixes and things to look for when that's happening. The first thing that I would look for is, are you setting your peep height at a natural position for your body? I see so many archers that go to an archery shop, their bow is set up, or maybe even they set it up themselves, and they set a peep to a certain height based off of just some idea. Maybe somebody said 6" from the loop up is where you should set your peep, or maybe the shop is doing it for you and they just don't take the same time to really get things fundamentally sound for you, or maybe you just have never looked at it by doing it this way. So what you really need to do when you're setting your peep sight is anchor, draw, and all of that with your eyes closed. You don't want to, when your eye is open, you'll actually adjust your anchor to the peep. A lot of people will, even myself included, if I'm really not paying attention. So it's really important that when we're drawing the bow back and when we're anchoring, we do it with our eyes shut. And we want to be more focused on finding a comfortable anchor position and, the correct, most repeatable spot, period. When I do this, or when I have an archer that I'm working with that does this as well, I have them do this several times. I'll have them draw back and anchor. We can look, or I'll look through and see where my peep sight is. I'll adjust it to the right position on my scope, and then I'll repeat the process 2 or 3 more times and just make sure that that peep sight is in the exact same spot every single time. So if we're looking at that, it's gonna look something like this. So before I ever even draw or ever even lift my bow up, I'm already going to shut my eyes. So they're shut now. I'm gonna go ahead and draw back. I'm gonna anchor, and then I'm gonna open my eyes and see where my peep sight is in comparison to my scope. And everything looks good. I'm gonna let down, and then I'm gonna repeat that process and do that a couple more times. Now there's one more trick that you can do too whenever you're doing this. If you're gonna be shooting a fixed distance, say a 20-yard indoor range, that's all you're gonna be shooting, go to 20 yards without a peep sight in your bow and shoot the bow and sight it in up and down. Don't worry about left and right at this point, but sight it in up and down to be hitting the middle of that 5-spot target or Vegas target or whatever it may be. And that's gonna help you with setting your peep. Once you've done that, you can go back through, you can do this same drill, you set the peep sight correct way, go back to the range and see if everything is still the same. If you notice that you're missing low on target, or if you're missing high on target, then you need to go back and you need to adjust your peep height. If you're hitting high on target, the peep is too high. If you're hitting low on target, the peep is too low. You need to adjust it accordingly. Now the other thing that can happen is during our shot, especially if we're holding a long time, or if we don't have good form to begin with, we can start to collapse. And a lot of archers, when they start to collapse, the front shoulder will start to rise up, maybe even their back shoulder, and they'll start to hunch their neck and their head down. And that will pull the peep completely out of alignment for you. Any one of those things on their own will do that, but a lot of people do all of those at once. So that's a really big problem to look at. So when you're at full draw, if you notice that you're hunching or you're doing anything crazy, that's something to look for. So right now I've got good form. My bow arm is up, my shoulder is out, but if I start to scrunch and kind of creep or come forward a little bit and duck my head down, then that peep's way out of alignment on my scope. The other thing that you can do is you're moving your hand too much. A lot of archers, when they're executing their shot, especially if they're pulling through their shot, they'll start to pull their hand out of alignment with their face. So they're actually moving that string further away, or they're moving it further in towards their face. And that's causing a problem too. Some archers will even move their hand up or down too. That usually goes back to more of not finding a comfortable anchor position with your peep and the height and the setting of your peep with your scope, because maybe your hand's too far down than what it naturally wants to be able to line the peep and the scope, and you're starting to move it up because naturally that's where your body wants to go. Generally, until you start to break down and start to really mess up with your form and hold too long, your body will naturally go wherever it should be. And if you're not aligned up with your peep, or your stabilizer system isn't set correctly, or any one of those things, that'll cause the bow to move and you'll mess up your peep alignment. That's really the biggest things that I see with a lot of archers. The other thing is if you have a hinge release or any kind of release in general, if you're moving your hands or your fingers a whole lot during the shot, then a lot of times you can hinge yourself off your face some too, and that can cause you to move your peep, or you'll start digging your head too far into the string. That's a big one too. But those are the ones that I would look for. All right, so my third question is a really quick and easy one for me to go over, and it's something that I like to talk to other archers about because I do believe in the product that I use here. It's from Caden Singh, and his question is talk about peep sights, or really statement, but that's what he put on there. And I'm gonna do this really quickly. I'm gonna go over what I use and why I use it. So for me, what I'm using is a specialty archery peep. And then with that peep, I have a 5 aperture kit. So this is a spare peep. These are the ones that I use. Inside this peep, it is threaded. Hopefully you can see that there. It's got a threaded inner position, and that will allow you to take these inserts, these apertures, and they thread in and out. I have a 5 aperture kit. They look a little bit different than this now on their website. This is the one that I use, and I can adjust my scope and the length of it rather away from my riser for my torque tuning, get it set up in the spot that I need it to be and the way that I'd like for it to be, and then I can use these apertures to adjust back and forth to change the opening of my peep sight and align everything with my scope. That's why I use that. Now beyond that, there's normal ones like I use that are like this. There's some hooded ones that they use. Those are really good if you're using a clarifier. Some people use a verifier, and they need that as well. It's really good for those situations because it keeps glare off of it if the sun's coming at a certain angle, or if it starts to rain or something like that. It's not going to get inside the peep sight itself and mess up your lens. The apertures are a really cheap way to find out what size clarifier or verifier you need. So those come in the same different sizes that screw in and out of this peep, just like the apertures I showed you. That's a quick way to do it that doesn't cost you a whole lot of money to try a lot of different sizes. You can waste a lot of money on that enough just trying different powers of them. But that's what I use, and come in different colors, and they're bulletproof. The one that you saw as my backup one is one that I've had for other bows. It's a little bit newer one. This peep sight here I've had for at least 6 years. Same peep, it's bulletproof, and it works. All right, so if you remember on the first question that we had, there was some talk about double vision and eye dominance and being able to retrain your brain and strengthen what you need to be able to take over with certain eyes. That's where this question comes in. So these are, this is a 2-part one. There's 2 people on here. One of them's a question, one of them's more of a statement. It's actually an archer that I've worked with over this in the past, and he chimed in on here too. So this is what we're gonna go over that will really help you with some double vision and some issues like that. This first question here is Maka Dude. It's how do you deal with double vision? I've tried blinders, fancy scopes. I currently shoot with one eye, but my depth perception is a little off. And the next one is D. Buckner. This was the archer that I've worked with in the past. Let's talk about what I emailed you on about my eyesight and the tip you gave me about using a pin and a light switch to help reprogram my mind into being able to see past the pin and not get tunnel vision. The blinders, fancy scopes, and the depth perception with one eye is a pretty big one. A lot of archers in the target realm especially go through this when they're using scopes and lenses, and your one eye is focused in looking through a magnification and the other eye is not. So you can come in with some problems like this. It also can be a problem in a low light situation too, because your eye will start to get fuzzy rather on the peep and the scope and the way it's looking through it. So normally one of the things that I'll mention and that I'll recommend for an archer is a blinder. They make some that go on the scope that's going to sit off to the side like this, so it basically just blocks your left eye from being able to see the target. They make some that clip onto your hat. I mean, really you can even make your own. You can get a clip from the store, like a paper clip or something, one of the big metal ones with the clamp, and a business card or a piece of paper or cardboard off of a box or anything. You can make your own and flip it down from your hat. Those are some really easy ways to do this, and basically what it's doing is it's just blocking your vision from your non-dominant eye. But if you are still having problems and you're having some issues with, still wanting to look at that blinder, or your eye is not correctly looking down your scope or something of that nature, There's two things. One, check your eye dominance like I talked about in the first tip. You may have a different eye dominance than what you're thinking. You may need to switch around what you're doing with your bow. Outside of that, there is a trick that I found that you can do that will really help you with what you're trying to do. Basically, you're retraining your brain. You're having to come up with a way to focus down with one eye over the other, but still leave both of them open. Leaving both your eyes open is an important thing to do. Like the question on there stated, he gets tunnel vision when he's closing one eye and his depth perception is off. So that's a really big thing. We have both our eyes open in day-to-day life, and we walk around and we do everything. And just like we were talking about before, if I hold my finger up in front of the camera right now, I kind of see a couple different views of my finger because it's closer to my face. But overall, I can still tell you that I can touch that camera lens with my finger without having to close and squint one eye. And that's something that our bodies naturally do. We naturally use both of our eyes to align on a certain subject. The problem with that is with Peep Sight, it's completely closing off the eye that we're not using from looking through that scope. So our body is still trying to use both eyes to see the target, and it's creating some issues. So what we need to do is train ourselves to really shut off the eye that we're not looking through the peep and through the scope with, and it's going to stay open, and it's going to allow you to have light come in, and your depth perception, your balance, all of that's going to stay the same. So that's a big one, but your mind is naturally going to focus through one eye, and it's almost like you're not even looking through the other eye. You won't even really notice that it's there. You'll focus directly on the target. What you need to do, you can take a pin, you can take your arrow, any kind of object that's got a point on it, and you need to line that up with another object. So the archer that I worked with, I told him use a light switch and a pin. It's really easy. Everybody's got that. You can do it sitting at your office at work. You can do it when you get home, anything like that. And focus on setting up that pin and looking first at the tip of the pin and then looking at the light switch. So you're going to focus on the tip of the pin and then focus on the light switch. And you want to be able to line both of those up. And if you need to kind of close your non-eye that you're using, so your left eye in my case, and get everything aligned up to begin with, and then slowly start to open that eye, that's what you can do and kind of get everything to start working in line. You're just basically retraining your brain and retraining your focus point on what you're doing. Now, there's some other different things you can do. You can start with it further away and get closer. You can start with it closer and get further away. I've found some people work a little bit different than others. Me personally, the further out like that and the closer that this hand is to the light switch or whatever it is, I can line those up better. And the further I get it away and the closer to my eye, it's a little bit harder. You start to get double vision. I've read some different things about this. This is actually something from the firearms world to help focus on the front sight on a handgun. And I've read some different things where you need to try to train yourself to do this to where you can get the pin closer and closer and closer. Basically, it's right up against your face. I can't do that. I'm gonna get double vision if I do that. My eyes will cross, and I mean, it's really painful for me, and it really sets it back when I go to try to hold that pin back out. I would suggest just holding everything out at arm's length. Use your thumb or a pin or whatever, and just align it up with stuff, and try to train your brain and start working on it that way. It's just an exercise, just like if we work out and we lift weights or we do anything like that. It will build repetition, and it'll build your body's natural ability to just hone in and focus on that one area. All right, so one last thing I'd like to say really quick. If you don't follow me on Instagram, go ahead and follow me on there. I'll put my handle or whatever you want to call it, my name, my username for that account on there. It's just RC Archery. So look me up, find me, follow me on there. I'm going to start doing some live feeds from my Instagram channel, and then occasionally do some live feeds from my Facebook channel as well. And that's the same as RC Archery. My Instagram's got more followers. That's why I'm going to choose that to do the live feeds, but I'm going to do some fun stuff, some giveaways. I'm going to have guess the misses, where I'm going to start shooting at a Vegas round, and whoever guesses which end that I missed the 10 on, I'm going to do a giveaway for that. I'm going to do some impromptu just shooting and answering some questions along the way when I'm shooting at night, and just have some fun with it. Appreciate everybody watching this video today. Hopefully it helps some of you. Share the video, like it, subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate each and every one of you. I'll see you soon.